Griffith. I live in Forestville. I'm tall. My son goes to school there, so I'm invested as a homeowner also in the long haul. And I just wanted to share a quick anecdote that I think can serve as a metaphor. I facilitated the ag students at Forestville, at Elmo, to go harvest apples from a kind of neglected orchard a week ago. The culinary students made it into apple pie, apple crisp for the boosters' picnic. So my favorite kind of facilitation of community. The owner of the orchard on Covey Road told me that before he used to go 6 to 8 feet deep for his well. Since the big vineyards have surrounded his house, he has to go 30 to 40 feet. Now, that's one person, that's an anecdote. The aquifer is a subject of concern. The vineyards, in this case, are a metaphor for something that is not desirable to our long-term interests. I would like to know what Lynda Hopkins would say to let me know as a voter, how can I depend on all of your signs being on all of those vineyards, and you are really going to represent the 1%, because I just don't hear it. Thank you.
I'm happy to answer that question. I don't know if you heard a very similar question being asked earlier in the evening. If you were here, if you got here late, or did you hear that response, or should I sort of repeat a little bit?
I believe I heard a very similar response, and it's still in my mind.
Okay, absolutely, yeah. Well, I think that, truly the way to ensure, I guess I would say, how do we limit the influence of special interests on government? Whether they are unions, whether they are vineyards, whether they are business owners, whether they are, just people that you've been best friends with for the last 30 or 40 years. I think that's a huge question for local government to answer. And I think that the way to solve it is actually through direct access of the community, which is why we've been holding town halls throughout the 5th District, which is something that I will continue to do if I'm supervisor. Because here's the thing, as long as you and I are talking to, right now, tonight, I'm not at some $150 plate dinner talking to somebody else. And it was funny because I had a lot of people in the political scene at first ask me, well, where have you been for the last 9 years? I'm like, I've been speaking out in supervisors meetings. I've been working on policy with local nonprofit organizations. But where I hadn't been was where most of the political decisions get made, which are at the $90 a plate crab feeds and sort of the political events where you literally go and you see the same 50 or 100 people at every single thing. So what I believe is actually turning government inside out and bringing government out into the community so that the more that you are transparent and accessible, the more that the influence of sort of all of those other people goes away, because you can hold my feet to the fire and say, what do you think about Dairyman? What do you think about this project proposal down the street? When we have a county government that predicates its sort of notice for any kind of local development on an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper stapled to a telephone pole that doesn't even necessarily face the road, how can we ever have effective community engagement? We can't, because people don't know what's going on. So I would say that what we really need to do is, turn government inside out so that everybody has access to their local elected officials. I'm very, very passionate about that. And that's partly why I'm actually very proud of the tremendous diversity of support that I have received. Everyone wants to sort of talk about, the winery contributions. I also am supported by small food farmers and people who saved up money for months to give $500 to my campaign because they believe in my ideas to address homelessness. That means so much more to me than any sort of maximum donation check ever could. And I think that it's very important actually to assemble a diverse coalition for your campaign, which we have done. I have gotten endorsed by unions, by environmentalists, by farmers of all walks of life, and by local business groups, which shows that my message of transparency and public engagement is actually an effective message that really transcends boundaries. I don't think that anyone's seen quite this diverse of a campaign for supervisor in the 5th District with the different endorsements that I have received. So I am very passionate about representing the interests of everyone and not being dominated by by any one special interest. My supporters don't even agree with each other. They get into fights. So, and I've already actually taken positions in opposition of the Farm Bureau, so, which endorsed me.
We talk about transparency, and transparency is more than a word. It means that you folks have information and that you're allowed to read it and see it and analyze it for yourselves and think about it and draw your own conclusions. As I mentioned before, all of the information about the contributions in this campaign are listed on my website. You can actually go to the county's website and see it too. Directly from our own hands, we sign every contribution report under penalty of perjury. That's the same oath that you take to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth when you're in court. So all of the campaign contributions are listed again on my website, and I trust you to go and read that and decide for yourselves. I do want to mention transparency though, because that is something that I think the county government needs to do a whole lot of work on. We have a lot of lobbyists operating at the county administration center. Some of them actually work with some of the people right here in this room. They are not registered. The state of California requires every lobbyist to register. That means they file a piece of paper saying who they are, where their office is, what their contact information is, and who their clients are. They also have to report every single campaign contribution they make. The city of Santa Rosa requires the same thing in their local elections. The county does not. So all of these lobbyists that operate now in the county administration center can go have conversations with your elected and your appointed officials to ask them to make these decisions, and you will never know the wiser. They can also participate in campaigns, and you will never know. So my proposal is, again, give you information. Identify who those lobbyists are by name, who their clients are, and how much money they're contributing to each candidate for elected office in the county. And that way, again, you'll have the information you need to make an informed decision. Thank you.
Can I say one thing? Yeah. I'd actually like to add one point, which is that I absolutely support campaign finance reform. And actually, San Francisco has a fantastic model where they actually have an ethics committee that oversees local campaigns. So for instance, you can file that complaint if you feel that misinformation is being spread. It also does require the registration of lobbyists, and so increasing the transparency of government. I will add one thing, as a journalist, this is something that I followed relentlessly. And so actually the county itself could do a little bit better of a job of making campaign contributions available to the public. Right now, they're scanned in pages, they're not searchable, you can't really sort of easily amass the information, and it's all in these sort of separate, they're filed in all these different things, you have to click on a separate link. Long story short, we need to do a better job technologically as a county at making transparency accessible to reporters and to the public. And this is also true in the local court system, where you have to go and file a request to get a specific document, and 2 weeks later, then you have to come back and pay. All of this stuff should be electronic, it should be searchable, and it should be very, very much at everybody's fingertips.